Hi guys, it's Mark Zickery, Mr. Sci-Fi, and I'm living the exciting Mr. Sci-Fi life, and we are getting ready for a number of Kickstarter campaigns upcoming, including for Space Command and Elaine's film When the Voiceless Roar, and Sweet Haven, the show we're doing with Rockney O'Bannon. So we've been shooting footage for all of these things, and working on the post-production on Space Command Forgiveness, and the visual effects, and shooting Space Command Great Solar War. It all continues. It's all exciting and great. And we're selling shares in Space Command and in the Showrunners Network. If you're interested in buying shares, now is the time. Just email me at markzickree@gmail.com, markzickree@gmail.com, and I will be happy to tell you all of the information. The shares are $7,500 each. You get a percentage of my producer's net profits. Very exciting. But in the meantime, I'm going to tell you about what I did this weekend. And I posted recently about the Los Angeles Time Festival of Books, which I hadn't been to for a number of years. It used to be at UCLA, where my old alma mater, and now it's at USC, which is okay. It's fine. It's different. I'm glad I went to UCLA myself, but, you know, I'm biased. But the first thing we did on Saturday is we went to the great Anime Wong exhibit at the Chinese American Museum. It was the next to last day of the exhibit. It was curated by a young woman who's written a biography of Anime Wong, a book about Anime Wong. Anime Wong, for those who don't know, was the first great Chinese American movie star. If you saw Babylon, there's a sort of a version of her, or a fictional interpretation of her. She's in many, many films, including Shanghai Express with Marlene Dietrich. Just an amazing, amazing actress, and visually gorgeous. And if you don't know about her, check her out. It's really worth doing. Then the next day I went to the LA Times Festival of Books. And, you know, it's funny because you never know what you're going to encounter, or at least I don't. And what happens is you find a number of interesting books, you find a number of interesting people, and you meet famous writers and directors, etc., that you did not know, first of all, and secondly, knew you, or were fans of yours. So I'll walk you through it. It was a lot of fun. So I'll just show you some of the things I got and talk about some of the things I did, and it's going to be the best time ever. So first of all, as many of you know, my dear line producer and right-hand person Inez de los Santos is about to have twins, and so I'm on the lookout for baby things. And so I found this very cool book for kids called My First Sci-Fi Movie, and it's got Logan's Run on the front, and then I'll show it to you, Barbarella and Planet of the Apes. It's these big thick pages, and THX 1138, 2001. It's really fun. You know, Crumbling Cities. So that's you know, corporations. I guess this could be any number of movies, but it's probably Omega Man. And here again, Logan's Run, and Clockwork Orange was pretty fun, considering it's a children's book. Fantastic Planets, so that could be Star Wars. Lonely Missions, that's Silent Running, the great Doug Trumbull's film. This is, of course, Zardoz with Sean Connery, and David Bowie in Nicholas Roeg's film, and Man Who Fell to Earth. Here's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Donald Sutherland, Close Encounters, and let's see, what else do we have in here? We have, I'm turning the thick pages that stick together. Hold on. Okay, great. Westworld, Blade Runner, and finally, 2001, of course, and Alien. So it's a great book. And he has many other books on, like, film noir and auteurs and so forth. So, and I should mention the author's name, which is, let's see if it's even listed here. Corey Everett wrote it, and it was illustrated by Julie Olivey. So, cool work. So, and then the LA Metro was there, and to commemorate Earth Day, they were selling Metro cards made of bamboo, which I thought was very cool. Earth Day, you know, was first invented when I was a kid or a teenager, and the person who developed the very famous ecology symbol, which is sort of like an oblong with a line through it, that was Ron Cobb, the great designer of Alien and Aliens and Total Recall, who was a friend of mine. And so that was very, very fun to know someone who created one of the great symbols of all time. So that was very fun. So I'll use this card. It's very cool. And then I also got this magnet. It says "Vote" with The Handmaid's Tale on it. Though I think voting is, while important, I think protesting, resisting is even more important. If you want my personal opinion, I try not to talk about politics on Mr. Sci-Fi, but with books in colleges and the press under active attack, I think these go beyond politics to just freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of being America, being what we've grown up loving and knowing. I think that that's something worth preserving and worth fighting for. So, meantime, you also learn what people are doing to promote themselves, because many authors had booths just to promote themselves and their books. And someone came up with a really great idea. This is a book by Cristina Maria Martinez, and it's called Shattered Pieces Everywhere, a memoir. And what she was doing was giving out her book free. So they gave out around 1,000 copies in 2 days. And what this does is it gets the word out. It starts to spread the word. It gets attention on the booth. It's a very clever idea, because most people are trying to sell their books, and if it's something you haven't heard of or something that you don't know about, you're not really that interested in hearing their pitch or their hype. But a lot of people want a free book. A free book, wow! So I will look at this and see what her story is about. But I talked with her, and she seemed like a cool person, and I invited her to join my roundtable, which is easily done via the Zoom, or attending in person. It's every Thursday. By the way, if you're wondering about my T-shirt, it's basically saying, if you think that capitalism will never disappear, the Right of Kings certainly did. And it's a quote from Ursula K. Le Guin. So, the great Ursula K. Le Guin, one of the great female science fiction writers, or let's just say one of the great science fiction writers, period. And then I found this. There's also a lot of booths from small presses, and you find books that you never otherwise would have come across. So there was a press, what are they called? PM Press, and they were selling this book half price, and it's about Dangerous Visions in New Worlds, Radical Science Fiction, 1950 to 1985. Well, that's very interesting to me, of course, and it has some books on the cover that are actually by people I knew. Roger Zelazny, who was my teacher at Clarion, George Clayton Johnson, and Bill Nolan, who co-wrote Logan's Run, etc. So it'll be very fun to read about this, because the more I find out about the history of science fiction, the better. And this is from a slant that I'm not that savvy about, and so I look forward to reading this. And then they were also selling 2 little books by people of interest to me. This is a book I'd never heard of, Samuel R. Delany, The Atheist in the Attic. Now, that's Chip Delany. He was also one of my teachers at Clarion. When I knew him when I was a teenager, I was 19 when I went to Clarion and sold my first short story. Chip Delany was young and thin and didn't have a beard or mustache, so he looked very, very, very different than he looks currently. But more power to him. He's, of course, one of the great writers of science fiction, and I'll be very interested to see what he has to say in this little book. And then another book I came upon, and it's, interestingly enough, it's signed, which is cool. I love signed books, is Jonathan Lethem, The Collapsing Frontier. Now, the interesting thing about Jonathan Lethem is I'd never met him, and I'd read a number of his books. I thought he was really, really good, really a wonderful writer. And he's one of those writers who's sort of on the cusp of science fiction. He's mainly positioned as a sort of a literary writer, mainstream literature, but some of his work veers into science fiction. He'd also done a great analysis of Stanislaw Lem that I quite liked, so it turned out he was signing. So I bought his newest book, and he turned out he was a fan of my work. He said he'd read and reread The Twilight Zone Companion many times, so he wrote for Mark Scott Zickrey, "Great to meet you," and signed it, Jonathan Lethem. And I'm going to follow up with him. Maybe we can get together for a bite and get to know each other, because this is very, very cool. So, that's how you go, and that's how you find people and meet people. And, and again, one of the things I stress to people that I mentor is always go places, meet people face to face. Like if they're doing a signing, buy their book and figure out something you can say in just a sentence or two that might intrigue them. try to get their contact info if you can without being obnoxious. Another person whom I met, and it was great fun to meet him, is John Chu, who's written a book. He's a director and a writer, and he was the director of Wicked, which I quite liked. So I stood in line and got his signature. And he turned out he knew about me too. So he wrote, "Mark, you are a legend. Keep going." So that's really cool. So I'll follow up with him, and maybe we'll become pals, and maybe I'll play a Munchkin sometime, or God knows, whatever. But also I want to offer him my studio. So if he needs to shoot, like if there's a shot he wanted that the studio wouldn't let him have, he can come to Space Command Studios and grab it for free, because why not? Now finally, this is someone who's going to be in Space Command, and I met him again. This is someone I admired for a long time. This is Bruce Valanche. This is his memoir. It seemed like a bad idea at the time. He is a comedy and TV writer, and he's so he says he signed it, "Mark, make me a fantasy." And he is the writer of the Star Wars Christmas special, the infamous Star Wars Christmas special. He's also described himself as looking like a Muppet brought to life, which he does. And so I'm going to put him in Space Command and give him something to do. And I just think it'd be very, very funny to have him in my little corner of the world. So, and then finally there were a few used book dealers, including a friend of mine who's just opened a bookstore, and I bought this copy of. I always like to buy something from used bookstores to kind of encourage them, because they are a wonderful, wonderful thing in the world, and I do not want them to go away. And this is a book called Tactics of Mistake by Gordon R. Dixon, and it is a very nice cover by the great Kelly Freas, whom I met at many conventions. He was one of the great illustrators of the 50s and 60s into the 70s and beyond. I once hired him to do a portrait of me at a convention, and it ended up looking more like him than like me, which is why I don't have it on my walls, because it's like, oh gee whiz, I don't need a picture of Kelly Freas made to supposedly be me, but that's some of the haul, and I thought you might enjoy seeing it. It's just great fun. I love the world of books and writers, and this was well worth going to and well worth doing. And I think I've made some new friends, and I met also some aspiring writers who I invited to my round table, so they can be part of a community and given some hope for their future. And that's about it for now. So subscribe, ding the bell, spread the word, let people know about Mr. Sci-Fi, and we will be talking again really soon. Bye, guys.